sometimes the best you can do is the present. Like, what is it? Where are my feet right now? What can I do? Half of it is just trying to honor that by doing more. And then the other part is obviously trying to leave a little bit of a legacy. Real change takes everyone. So if you annoy people or you get them off the walk on step one, then it's just not going to be a step forward.
Aloha and welcome to PEP Talk, the podcast for purpose-empowered people. And I'm here with one now, which is Alana Whionga Tuilaepa Tumama Tu'ulua, otherwise known as Tu, presumably. Great to
Thank you for having me on.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So on the show, we just sort of ask people who they are. You're known by some people for different things as the West Coast Rugby TikTok guy, or you may be known as the principal consultant of PEP Solutions. But yes, who are you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, so like you said earlier, my name is Tuilaepa Tumama Tu'ulua. I was born and bred here in the city of Ōtautahi, Christchurch. Educated here as well. I am married. We have 3 beautiful girls, very young, under the age of 5. And yeah, wear a few different hats, which I think many of us do. I used to play rugby for a few different teams, across a few different cities, including the West Coast, like you said. And yeah, but consultancy, yeah, I'm trying to do it to make some meaningful impact across the organizations and communities that we're a part of.
Fantastic. That's cool. And so that leads really well onto the next one, which is, why do you do what you do?
Man, I think multiple reasons. I think trying to build and utilize the foundation. I think that those before us built. So obviously my parents immediately in terms of the reason why I'm here, but also just in the different spaces that I'm fortunate to be in now, whether that's sport or and consulting. There were many people that came before me. I think half of it is just trying to honor that by doing more. And then the other part is obviously trying to leave a little bit of a legacy and represent and show that those pathways, whatever it may be, for our people and for my kids and for those coming after me, that hopefully try and make it a little bit easier, but also just build on that platform so then they can do way better and cooler things earlier and for a lot less money and make more money. So
For sure.
like I said before, and make a bigger splash and make a bigger impact
Yeah, nice.
and try and remove as many barriers as we can.
Yeah, cool. So that's quite a strong connection to the past and the future. Has it always been that way? Like, how did you come to this sense of purpose that you have right now?
I think it's just surrounding yourself with good people and people that are more experienced and smarter and cooler than you. Like, you always do the best you can with the info and the resources that you have, and then what is it called? The Dunning-Kruger effect, where the more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know.
That's
You
opposite of
just
Dunning-Kruger, but yeah.
yeah. So that's it. It's like, you try and serve and do your own tour as well as you can, and then when you find out more and you learn more, and once you know, and it's not just more. It's like once you know better, you try and do better. So then
Yeah, for sure.
and again, it's circumstantial too. Like sometimes the best you can do is the present. Like, what is it? Where are my feet right now? What can I do? And then if you're lucky enough and you have a bit of time and space and resources, you can then start thinking about, the ideal world is that you're always thinking about everything, right? You look at the past, what are the things that are in play? How the things that have happened in the past impacted where you're at now, and what are you doing now? How does that impact the future? Like, ideally, that's what you're always doing, but it's not always possible for many reasons. So again, I think just being surrounded by cool people, smart people that are constantly challenging and forcing me to think a little bit wider.
Awesome.
And you're just trying to take on those lessons, and then how can I share that and make it a little bit more digestible?
Like, I know a little bit about the work that you do, and especially in kind of anti-racism training, there is that know better, do better thing that you're trying to help other people come into. How do you find that so that it's not just a telling somebody off kind of thing, but more like facilitating their own journey into something better?
Yeah, I think over time, it's realizing that you've got to meet people where they're at. Like, it's not people don't know what they don't know, and they also don't have my experiences. So you can only see it through your own lens, which has been informed by your own experiences. So it's easy to say once you know better, do better, but like it's hard for people, like, if you've never known, then you don't know. And, there's I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's a framework where it goes through the stages, and there's 4 main ones, and we start with the unconscious incompetence. So you don't know, and then you shift to the conscious incompetence. It's like, okay, cool, I know it exists. It's still either purposely not doing anything about it or just don't know how. Then there's the consciously competent, where it's just like you're aware, you're actively doing stuff. And then I don't know if many people get to the stage, and then there's the unconscious competence, which is
Awesome.
do it automatically, implicitly. And then a lot of people will sit in that second or third stage for their whole life. Some will sit in one, and I mean, that's why it's called a blind spot. It's blind to you. So the work that we do, like, it can be quite confronting, but it's just, as I've gotten older, it's just like, oh mate, real change takes everyone. So if you annoy people or you get them off the walker on step 1, then it's just not going to be impactful.
Sure.
It also means that it takes a lot longer.
Yeah,
and it
for
can be
sure.
hard, but like, for that meaningful impact, I'm just trying not to blame people. It's easy. You can talk about colonization, but then, happened all across the world. Pacific nations did it to each other. Like, just trying to bring some understanding and just meet people with it.
And I noticed that some of us fragile Palangi snowflakes, we take it personally. Like, it's a historical fact that you're trying to convey, but it's like, oh, but I feel bad about it. But that's on me as the person choosing to feel that way, instead of like the curiosity. No, that's awesome. Have you always been into this kind of work, or was there a particular occasion or event or person in your life who sort of steered you this way?
Oh, so my background is kind of in education, but like support services. So I started off, man, honestly, I just started off driving vans and setting up volleyball nets. And a real good friend of mine now, but he was working at the time, I just needed for personal staff. And then from there, kind of just helped out more and more. Fast forward a few years, and now I'm running events and doing comms at the university within the Pacific unit. And then it kind of just grew from there. Did a bit of recruitment for the University of Canterbury in Auckland. Then I went and worked at MIT and Ōtautahi. Then went back to Christchurch when I worked for a visual development provider here. I was a product designer for them, and then ended up doing our own thing after being made redundant. I think not on purpose, but kind of always had done stuff within communities and marginalized communities and Pacific and Māori. And I've had a different job every 2 years for like the last 12 years. Not on purpose.
For sure. Yeah.
But, given that, like, was lucky enough that I got to gain a lot of like awesome experiences and skills, and created a lot of really meaningful relationships, which then, again, like I said, being around cool people, seeing what they do, but then also like across the different sectors, and that's sort of including sport, like realizing that the experiences that I've had, it's not the norms. And then seeing some of the issues or the problems that some of these organizations are facing, you have the skill set to be able to provide, possible solutions for. Again, just realizing there's a bit of a gap, and then realizing that not just me, and myself and my friends and everyone, we can support in that space. And it's, I've been lucky where it's a little bit easier to see, because I chop and change so often, but I've just managed to now use everything that I've had to do in different jobs with different organizations, and now get to work for myself. And instead of me doing it for the University of Canada, doing it at MIT or whatever, they just contract me directly. So yeah.
No, that's cool. Yeah. So there's probably, like a lot of our kind of generation, is that there's no sort of job security as a thing of the past. The whatever industry you choose is like it's fast changing, especially when you've gone from being employed to being self-employed or running your own show. What has sort of been helpful in finding an anchor, like a sense of purpose or a sense of compass, like if an opportunity comes along, this aligns with my purpose, kind of thing?
I think it's that. I think being values-based, I think everyone says it, and we've been quite lucky where at the beginning it wasn't an intentional thing, but we've been working within the Pacific community and with organizations that work with them. So non-Pacific that I want to be engaged with. So, it is those things, that is those values-based, and you can talk about Samoa values with, Aloha, Tautua, all of that sort of stuff, and that definitely comes in. But so we have a bit of a filter in that space. does it align with those values? And then for my wife and I, who's the other half of this team, is big one is, does it impact our community positively?
Yep.
I've had conversations lately where it's just like, I look at my CV and it almost feels like someone else, but that's a bit of an exercise of self-reflection, and you write down your skills, and it's hard to quantify too, right? Like, it's hard to actually write down everything that you know. But I sit there and I look at it and I was just like, man, like, sometimes I sit there, I'm like, what's the point of knowing all of that? And, I joke, I say, like, this is good mark in this other issue. So, but even stuff like that, but like, my thing is, what's the point of all of that? I turn around and those closest to me either have never seen it in action
Yes.
or have never been positively impacted by it.
Yeah,
Right? So
cool.
that's right,
Cool.
man. And we talk about us being collective,
Yes.
communities, and we're, the success of the whole. I think that's it for us. It's values aligned, and then can we see the impact, and does it provide impact for the communities that we're a part of? You talk about charity starting at home. Obviously, these are home, but they're not far outside of that, especially here in Christchurch, where we're definitely growing. But, compared to Auckland, our Samoan, the Pacific community, that's not as big.
It must be quite a different dynamic because, we're here in the midst of West Auckland, which everyone thinks of South Auckland as being Samoa Central, but West Auckland just the same. But Salah was born in Christchurch, and she knows there's not many Pacific people, so the dynamic must be quite different. You're often the only brown face at the table, around the tables that you're at, right?
Yeah. Especially growing up, I think the nature of the work that we're doing, especially in the last couple of years, it has gotten a little bit browner, I guess. I talk about those generations before me, and I'm sitting in town right now, and not far from here was the original St. Paul's PIC Trinity Church. That was one of the first places where our people, once they migrated down here, that was kind of a bit of a hub for language and culture and connections, and obviously faith as well. So, those guys obviously had children, which is probably a generation above me, and then now I was born in the early 90s, so, so yes, definitely. But then it's always a surprise and it's becoming less and less of a surprise when I walk in there and I see those people that have, toiled and served for years, and I'll sit there and, again, made that door a little bit easier for people like me to walk through. But that's it. I think, the last that I checked, Pacific people, and this is the Canterbury region, not even just Christchurch, but we make about 3% of the population down here.
Okay.
So that's all Pacific.
Yeah, man. Wow.
And then Samoans the majority of that, but again, we're in a subset of that.
Yeah.
We make a big splash, and obviously our rugby team's pretty good, and it's usually stacked with Islanders too, but definitely not. It's not Auckland, which is, the Polynesian hub of the world. So
I feel like rugby alone has done so much for mutual understanding of cultures. Would that be fair enough? Because I'm just, as somebody who watches it occasionally on TV.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I talk a little bit in that space, and I think that's some of the questions that I ask is, like, when it comes to sport, especially rugby in this country, and you could say in this city, the definition of what high performance, like, what does it take to create, what does it look like to have a high performing culture? Like, within rugby, the Crusaders even have a development program that is that's under VOMA, right? Like, it's a whole thing. So, but then and then we can also talk about the workplace culture, right? Talk about and the general term of culture and norms and all of that sort of stuff. And even with my studies at the moment, you talk about how when new ideas and new people come in, organizations have an immune system. They will either accept or reject a person or a change, and that immune system is pretty much culture that's personified. And so all of that to say, like, we have really solid understandings of culture in certain aspects, but then, when it comes to rugby, it's just like, all right, cool, but what about the question I ask is, what about the culture of the person walks into the door? Like, are there parts of myself that I have to leave in the car or at home when I go into work settings or the sporting field? And, I've got mates that are like, I do that on purpose. Like, for me to be my best self, I'm just a footy player. And it's like, that's awesome. But for me, it's just like, if they didn't want to and they wanted to bring their whole self, could they? It's just starting that dialogue, and it's, you can quantify it as makes vision a little bit easier in sport, but it's a little bit harder. I don't think it should be, but it's perceived as a lot harder to understand the others. And again, it's because it can be quite confronting, especially if you're saying that the way that you're experienced and seen and still look at the view of the world is that other people's experiences are different, and then B, you might be subconsciously playing apart and
Yeah.
making others feel less than. Like that's a big thing.
Yeah, like what's been the experience for some of those people who are kind of having that aha moment where it's like, oh, I'm part of the problem. How do you kind of guide people through that?
I think trying to set those expectations early too. They didn't know it can be confronting, and like you said, I think you used the word penalty. And it's not about blame; it's about curiosity too. There is responsibility once you know, and then what happens post that. But
Yeah.
in terms of trying to support with those moments, because it might not happen in front of us too, right? Like it could be them having dinner 2 weeks later, and they might notice something at a cafe like I am now, and they see an interaction, and it's it's an aha moment there. So
Definitely. Yeah.
just trying to, those key things. Which, it's not about blame. What things to talk about happened way before any of us were born.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, totally. Totally.
what are we doing in our own, and even me, like
Yes.
because I'm also privileged in many other ways that others aren't. So, how's it we as collectively can prevent some of those horrific things and attitudes continuing on?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So you've got a Matai title and quite a quite a big one, Tuilaepa, same as the former Prime Minister of Samoa. So what sort of role does that play in your day-to-day life?
Oh man, that is another whole podcast in itself. I mean, obviously a privilege. It's obviously a structure that's a very Samoan thing, eh? Like now walking into these spaces, and even through my studies, you look at the Western frameworks of leadership, you look at organizational structures and C-suites and all that sort of stuff. To be offered the opportunity to be a Matai, to hold the title from my mum's village in Sakapari, like massive honor. And you talk about what you call it, imposter syndrome, going into certain roles in an organization. Holy,
Oh, no.
yeah. And that's it, and it's a thing that's not yours, right? You're just the name doesn't belong to me. It's something that belongs to my family, to my village. And there were two neighbors that came before me. My uncle's one, my grandfather was one, and there's going to be many that even now have come after me, and generations after me will continue. So I think it's a constant battle of whether I am doing enough, as in terms of tautua and that service, and the system, alanga upu, and the whole thing. A lot of it is set up and it's based in Samoa, and we know this obviously yourself too, as a Matai, but we're based in a completely different country, and there are conversations around what does that culture look like from afar. You know what I mean? And people talk about remittance, but like it's much more than that too. So
yeah, there's much more.
And it does play a big part. Like I don't think it's And you asked about values earlier. I think it plays a big part of what we do for this work too. Is trying to serve in as many spaces as I possibly can, but then also just trying to also remind myself that because when I got asked, I was like, this is the thing. So I got asked in 2017. It was a very long story, but long story short, it was very quick. Like from being asked as a concept to me sitting there accepting that cup was like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
It was,
oh my goodness.
Man,
how old were you at this?
I just turned 25.
Okay, wow.
So,
quite young. I mean, that's probably ideal from the Samoan point of view, but generally speaking, for the diaspora population, that feels young.
Yeah, and that's I know that's not the way you're supposed to, but it's just been, and it's something that is on my mind. Like, should I be more proactive back home in terms of, should I make more of an effort to do it in Samoa, and again, I just talk a whole lot about, can my community feel and see the impact. Right off the fact that my community in Samoa and this village of Sapali, it happens. So it's but yeah, when I first got it, I was definitely a no, because I didn't think I was worthy and didn't feel it. But then someone said to me, it's just like, oh yeah, you don't feel like you're ready, but it's just like, you've got your whole life ahead of you to figure it out. So that's kind of what made me go, okay, maybe I can. And
it's a cool.
Some platforms, my name is Tuilaepa, some it's not. Like when I go again, I've worked at different places. So like, what's your name? What's your third name? And I can hear all of my uncles saying, you got to put that in there, and it's something that I'm getting better at.
For sure. I mean, it kind of helps, tongue in cheek, that all three of your names start with the letter TU. So like your short name is very handy.
100%. 100%.
Yeah. But yeah, there is that kind of which hat am I wearing in which situation. We sort of tend to become not total chameleons, but just which aspect of myself do I articulate for this situation versus another situation. Yeah. Man, that's really cool. That thing about growing into the responsibility. Do you find that having a strong sense of purpose just generally in your life and also having this title gives you power, when life is discouraging or when there are challenges or tough decisions to make? Does the sense of purpose and in the case of the title, belonging to something bigger than yourself, how does that sort of anchor you or give you strength?
Yeah, I think it's massive. Like we talked about earlier, it's a good initial filter in terms of should we do these projects. It was a filter that I even used it when I was working too. Right there were roles and certain things that I stepped away from because I felt like it didn't align. And then the other good thing is that depending on what you do for work and stuff, it can sometimes be hard to see. I've talked a lot about impact, but it's hard to have a line of sight between what you do versus where your consumers or your customers, whether it's a service or product, where they experience the benefit and the value of what it is that you do. So if you're just one part of 100 parts that creates one thing that one person experiences, sometimes it's hard. If I work at a factory and my job is to screw on something that creates this, that it's hard to see the person that ends up buying the car that drives it and the value that they have. So I say all of that because one thing I'm quite lucky is that, being purpose driven is also a good filter. It keeps me grounded. I've got young kids, so that's another thing but with my kids, I can see them, I can hear them, the impact, in terms of the decisions that I make, either myself or for them. I can see how it affects them straight away. And then I can also see, okay, well, if I do this, this is what's going to happen. And then again, the same thing with the communities that I get to work with too. So I'm very fortunate that the things that they need, I can almost deliver straight away. And it involves the people directly, as a consumer or as impacted by it. So purpose is massive. And the fact that I get to see it because being enacted right in front of me, at a supply chain thing, which is all the way down near the end, that's been really helpful. One of the contracts we have is with the collective of Pacific Early Childhood Teachers here in Christchurch. There's only 6.
Oh, okay,
They are slowly whittling away across New Zealand. But again, there's no way 6 years ago I would have said yes to working with early childhood because I would have been like, why would I ever do that? And now we have a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 10-month-old that are all in a Pacific ECE centre. Nice. And then you start thinking and you realise how important the role that they have, talking about language, revitalisation and all that sort of stuff starts to come in. And so that's a classic example of a contract where, is it aligned? Kick yes. The community, like my wife and I went to those centres as well back in the 90s, but now our kids are going to. And then obviously there are issues, and like your wife and your stuff obviously know a little bit about that sector. There are some systemic things there that's going to take people a lot smarter and a lot at a higher pay level and to create solutions. That's a classic example of deal with things in terms of development, in terms of recruitment, in terms of awareness and engagement, where I was just like, I know how to do that. I've done it for a few different organizations. Beautiful. And they just don't have the time. So it's just like, these are the things that we can do for you. And then I see the impact immediately. We deliver professional development training for their teachers. We provide celebration events for the community and staff too. Like there's a whole raft of things. I've rambled, but I 100% agree. Like the purpose thing is awesome. We've been lucky enough that the impact and the people and consumers of the services that we provide.
That's cool.
You talk about tough days. It'll be a whole lot tougher if I was doing these things, and I'm just like,
I don't know what
doing anything. Like,
totally.
Which a lot of people do. A lot of people's circumstances, right? They can't see. They don't have that line of sight between their part of the thing that they're doing, and that's why I give it up to. That's why I give it up to people that migrated here from different countries, and I'm talking about work in that instance. But that's it. They didn't even have. My grandparents couldn't see me. Like there's all of these things, but they did it not being able to see They put in the grind.
They had faith, and it may not even have been a real clear vision that they had, but just that somehow it would work out better for your parents' generation and your generation. Man, that's really cool. That's a really good insight about the line of sight to the impact. I'm reminded of a book that I read called God in Work, and it was talking about, there was this story of a factory where they had an assembly line, and one person just made this part of the washing machine, then they pass it on to the next, and they just make that component. No idea like what the eventual product looks like. And then they reorganized it so that you had a group of 5 people, and together they made one washing machine, and they got so much happier because they were like involved and they could see the end product and they could evaluate it together. Have we made a good washing machine? Yes, we have. Excellent. Let's ship it. And it was sort of the reason why it's called God in Work. It was a little bit like this, the Holy Trinity, the creator, the sort of the conceptualizer, the executor, and the evaluator, comparing that to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Man, it must have been a good book, because it was like more than 20 years ago that I read that, but that's stuck in here. But that's exactly what you're saying. It was like people want to know what is the point of what they're doing. And it's really kind of hard to do work when you don't see the point, when you don't know who it's for, what it does. Yeah. So awesome point.
And then even harder once you realize what it is, and you're like, oh, is that like, and that doesn't align with what, you know what I mean? Like,
let's
say you, in your analogy, let's say you do that, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like I must be making the best washing machines ever. And then at the end you find out you're making a dryer. It's like, but that's not what so 100%. And a lot of, that I read a lot lately, but a lot of those leadership frameworks and stuff like that, and you talk about, you're thinking about, the automotive industry, and there's that whole, I think they call it the waterfall system, which is exactly what you explained, right? So I do my part, I give it to you, you do your part, and this goes down the conveyor belt. And then now you look at things like the agile frameworks and stuff like that, that's essentially in a nutshell what it is, right? You get a diverse group of people together with different skills, and together you do the thing.
Because it's amazing how much like any 2 people know, because our life experiences are so diverse, especially in the day and age that we're in. When we had COVID, I remember I was teaching a lot of people different software systems, because suddenly everyone was online, and it was like everyone felt imposter syndrome. It's like, oh, I'm really bad at this. And like, don't worry, everyone's really bad at this. Because I was thinking, what about my parents' working life? They had to drive a car, and pretty much you've seen one car, you've seen them all. And then they had whatever, like mum had sewing machines and dad had printing machines, and they probably didn't change for years. And like, here we are, Zoom rolls out an update and everything's in a different place. And everyone's like, we're all having to deal with so much change in a short time. So that 100%. To me, that says like agile is the way to deal with things right now.
Yeah, and it was a software thing, right? It's a software development framework, which everyone's kind of taken and been like, you can be agile in anything, which people 50-50 on whether, but 100%.
That's cool. So what are your dreams and hopes for the future? Obviously you're in the middle of an MBA.
Yes. So hopefully I was actually going to just take it easy, but I've gone to complete off, so I'm going to try and finish it this year. I started this time last year, so hopefully finish it this year. And what am I think just trying to find, where is it that I can best serve? And then not just that, like how can I improve the quality of their service, whether that's being being a better husband or a better son or a better father. I think, in those spaces where I know, it's just like, okay, cool, well, how can I do this better? And then in terms of what we do for KEP, that's it. Like for me, I'm like, I don't have to be the one to do it. Like, man, I do not care. Like the next person comes along that is just way better positioned and just better overall for what it is that the need is, then I am happy. Like I don't mind, as long as at the end of the day our people win. So I think it's just trying to find where is the best place that I can be, our consultancy can be, where we can have the most impact, irrespective of that means that we have to move out from certain. That's one thing with the business head on, and we've talked about this, like, you can't do everything for everyone. And our business model right now is we're doing literally everything for everyone. Like, you want to write down the services that we're providing right now, it's a bit inefficient and it's a bit crazy, but
it's very relatable.
I think,
Well, thank you very much. It's been so awesome having a chat with you. Tuilaepa Tumama Tu'ulua. And how can people find you on the World Wide Web?
Yeah, so we have a website, keepsolutions.co.nz, and then just do our socials, the same handle on Facebook and Instagram, and I'm slowly starting to chuck stuff on LinkedIn, but yeah, that's probably the easiest way, and just put us a message, and yeah, pretty keen to connect.
Fantastic. Awesome. That's so good. It's been so good to catch up, and looking forward to catching up sometime in the future.
Thank you very much for having me on, and thank you for your time, Shui. Yeah, really appreciate it, and appreciate the work that you guys keep doing in Auckland and obviously across New Zealand as well. So thank you
Awesome.
very much.
Top te lava. Yep. Toi whenua.
Yeah.